And once again, welcome to my unboxing review of the Rising Freedom Gundam and the Immortal Justice Gundam. From the movie Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Freedom, both figures are available in Metal Robot Spirit series of Tamashii Nations. These are available in Tamashii Nations branches across the globe and other affiliated hobby stores. Also look for your local online shops that offer pre-ordering of all sorts of anime figures. Since I'm based in the Philippines, I pre-ordered in this Facebook online store page called 9th Street Shop. You could check out their exclusive offers and release dates, and also feel free to message them for more inquiries. So here we have the front and side box art showing some highlighted poses, and the back side that shows the initial info on the figures with the highlighted Gundam poses. Just by looking at the box says so much on how premium these figures are. The box truly speaks for itself with the contents inside, especially the reflective bronze gold design of the box that says Metal Robot Spirits. Each of these costs around 20,000 yen in Tokyo's Tamashii Nations and $190 in the New York's Tamashii Nations branch, tax included. So what you see at the back of the Freedoms box would be one highlighted pose and to showcase some gimmicks and other important details, just like the die-cast metal joints, which you won't likely find in any other Gundam figures. These are high-quality finished models with a style accurate to the anime, especially their proportions, with their very lean body when it comes to their edges and lean curvatures. Just like what you see in the anime, not anymore like those Gunplas with a small boxy torso. These have die-cast parts that create a sense of weight, complex coloring, and even the ability to deploy various weapons and then transform. Die-cast parts are used for each joint and are plated to create a luxurious look. And also, the scale was never mentioned, but it's safe to say it's 1:100. Rising Freedom Gundam and Immortal Justice Gundam ready for launching. Now let's begin with the unboxing by undoing the seal. Now it's time to release the Gundams, the Rising Freedom is out, and then the Immortal Justice. So these are the manual instructions to help you navigate through all of the gimmicks that exist within these Gundam figures, especially when equipping the weapons and transforming to mobile armor mode or flight jet mode. These will help you put everything together, especially to know all the cool gimmicks. Their design is based on the style seen in the film, in other words, anime accurate. The distinctive colors is produced with complex paintworks such as metallic and gloss. Metal Robot Spirit's original markings are printed in different places, making these highly detailed models. For the Rising Freedom, the wings are large and sharply sculpted, especially its white design between the black and the blue, overall creating an impressive silhouette. And as always, there's always a spare extra V-fin. Aside from the main weapons and equipments, here we have the stand with its Compass logo and titles The Rising Freedom. Furthermore, these are the other attachments and adapters for equipping and posing the Rising Freedom. Here are the beam shields and other beam saber effect parts. And finally, the Immortal Justice. It's the sister machine of the Rising Freedom, which excels in having multiple melee weapons and a few mid-range beam weapons. Both kits have several hand options, but you need to know that these both hands belong to the Rising Freedom, but they're found in the Immortal Justice set, which means you need to get both the Rising Freedom and the Immortal Justice. The main beam sabers that turn into boomerangs, and the shield that can fly on its own for long-range melee combat, and the two sharp wings remind me of the Strike North Striker Pack, but with the force thrusters and two beam weapons used in MA mode. As you notice, they both have the same rifle and the spare V-fin. The beam sabers effect parts come separately, and this is the shield's beam saber, as well as the beam sabers located below the knees. And just like the Rising Freedom, it also has the attachments and adapters for equipping and posing the Immortal Justice. The stand comes in the red color opposite to the Rising Freedom's blue. Aren't you just mesmerized by the luxurious aesthetic, and not to mention the solid metallic die-cast joints? Overall, the proportions are flawless. And here I'll demonstrate how it looks like when handling and attaching the parts. The joints are very tight, the head can move very comfortable everywhere, and the hands are fairly tight, but I can tell that after a while it can get loose. But I shouldn't worry about that if you're just gonna pose it a few times. And the legs are very tight compared to the arms. So I'll show you the articulation of the legs, that I could bend that far, and then the twisting of the ankles 360 degrees, and the flap of the back skirts. The rear thrusters look like small wings and can flap outwards, left, right, up and down, and then this is how you transform it later. I'll show it to you, but first we'll do more articulations. One thing I don't like about this kit are the front skirts, especially the Immortal Justice. They keep coming off so easily. Both kits have so much gimmicks, especially when deploying the side skirts, railguns. Just as I said, the legs are very tight. Let's compare the Rising Freedom's wings to the very first Freedom's wings of Robot Spirits. So much development has happened for the past 10 years, since the Metal Robot Spirits have pretty much stood out compared to the regular Robot Spirits in terms of design complexity. The wings with the Rising Freedom decal goes to the right side, while the other wing to the left. I noticed when placing the wings, the left wing is tighter and more difficult to attach than the right. Minor inconsistency, but overall great. And finally, the wing attachments are complete. I'll show you how the wings spread out. It has very tight articulation, should have no problems when posing. And then the Hyper Impulse plasma cannons can be deployed with a wide range of movement, readying for high mat full burst mode. And lastly, deploying the Viper 3 railguns. Improved version of the first Freedom Gundam's railguns. It's been known to come off so easily, but in my experience, it is tight enough to stay attached. This is the second release of the Rising Freedom. I'm sure some minor issues have been dealt with. So far, it's only the front skirts that come off so easily. Let's compare the railguns of the old Freedom release and with the railguns of the Rising Freedom Gundam. As mentioned, so much has developed with the Gundam's design in terms of the figure itself and the anime design, of course. Much time and work has been placed to create these improvements, as you can see. After showing you the wing articulations, I'll show you that it can be attached to the Immortal Justice Gundam. See how it looks? It reminds me of Spider-Man with a mix of red, blue, and dark colors. But for the Rising Freedom, it does not click in very well. Its upper torso doesn't match the form of the Immortal Justice wing adapter. It can be attached, but a few movements can tip it off. See? Look at how it can stay for a bit and then come off so easily. Both of their wings have multiple movable joints, allowing for flexible deployment that shows different modes of gliding and aerial maneuver. Let's equip the different hand options and their corresponding weapons. The wrist is a single ball joint that needs a bit of force to attach since it's very tight. Now that's good news for holding the weapons with a strong grip. And a glance between the first Freedom's Lupus Beam Rifle and the Rising Freedom's High Energy Beam Rifle. The Lupus Beam Rifle looks more minimalist. Let's equip the Beam Rifle, which are specially made for both the Rising Freedom and the Immortal Justice. And of course, there's the gimmick of attaching it at the rear skirt armor. With a lot of force, the arm detaches itself from the shoulder. Pew 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 pew! And then on to the dual wielding of the beam sabers. By gently attaching the beam saber effect parts on both handles, the Rising Freedom's dual wielding versus the 4 deployed beam sabers of the Immortal Justice. I can't wait to show you guys more poses. Aren't they flawless? And then on to the beam shields that start with a piston adapter, giving it a pop-out effect when deploying the beam shields. As seen in the movie, the Rising Freedom defended itself by activating both its energy beam shields against the Black Knight's melee weapons. And then some Gunpla poses. A quick comparison of the Freedom's iconic shield from Gundam Seed versus the anti-beam carrier composite arm shield of the Rising Freedom. Such a long name for a shield. And now let's activate its 3 beam saber effect parts before attaching it to the arm. But first it needs the ball joint adapter for equipping. It's a minor flaw that the shield is too big in terms of the design, which creates an obstacle for the shoulder, giving it difficulty to pose. But on the bright side, the shield can move down away from the shoulders when activating its beam saber for close combat. And finally, I sped up the video to help you quickly visualize how to transform it into MA mode or mobile armor mode. It utilizes a lot of attachments and adapters in order to transform it. It takes a lot of effort and concentration. As I look it up in the internet, the Rising Freedom and Immortal Justice were both developed from their predecessor Gundams, the Strike Freedom and Infinite Justice, as well as the Murasame, where they got their transformable frame. Developed by Compass with the technological help of Orbinion. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of adapters, attachments, as well as gimmicks required to fully transform it into MA mode. Thanks to the manual instructions, you will be able to understand and transform it with ease, step by step. Unlike the Saber Gundam and other MA mobile suits, these two Gundams require a lot of effort to transform. Personally, I think their transformation mechanism is too busy. I wish it was as simple as most of the Gundams that turn into jets, just like the Saber Gundam. And lastly, for the transformation, you must attach it to this stand with the two stand posts that can be adjusted in so many ways for you to pose it in any way you want. And now you need these adapters to combine it before attaching it to the Gundam itself in MA mode flight position. It took me a while to adjust and get used to their transformed mobile armor mode. They actually look cool in their very own unique style. I guess it creates new varieties of transformation style in the series of Gundam Seed. And finally, the Immortal Justice. I also walk you through with the articulations, gimmicks, equipments, and how it is handled, just like what I showed you with the Rising Freedom. Other than the unique gimmicks, they both have similar frame, therefore, articulations and the joint tightness are similar to the Rising Freedom. Also by having the same range of movements for flexibility when posing and displaying. So from the head, toes, and hands and arms, it's very tight compared to high grades and other Gunplas. Just like the Rising Freedom, the legs are very tight when posing it in any direction. During this experience, the front and side skirt tend to fall off so easily. I hope they improve the articulation in the newer releases of Metal Robot Spirits. Uniquely, the ankle joints or the foot cannot twist 360 degrees like the Rising Freedom could. Also, the toes do not have much tightness, which makes it difficult to stand on its own. It takes a lot of effort to move the legs. They're the tightest of all the joints, very rock solid. And then another closer look at the details. The printed decals, color separation, die-cast joints, and anime-accurate proportions. Very nice. These figures are around 2 to 3 times heavier than regular Gunplas. The heavy metallic die-cast joints really stand out. Another unique point is that it requires a special adapter to allow the beam rifle to be attached on the rear skirt armor, just like that. And one of my biggest disappointments with its flag-type wings, the articulation and joints are tight, but there is a part in both wings that wiggles side to side, which makes it hard to do a solid pose for the wings. It prevents it with the full imitation of what we see in the anime and the sample photos of the Immortal Justice. Just like that, it would wiggle and ruin the pose, but with much effort and better posing skills, you can achieve the proper wing poses. So here you see me trying to get the best pose for the wings from what we see in the box. The same issues that other people had with the Immortal Justice. And one more disappointment in terms of the Gundam design are these two beam cannons that were never used in the movie and can only be used in the mobile armor mode or flight mode. We usually have a beam saber handle and its beam saber effect part to be merged together, but surprisingly, its beam saber and its effect part come separately. Physically, it does not seem possible to grab on the beam saber boomerangs, since the handles are blocked by the red knob where it is attached to. And then here you go, a sample pose to demonstrate its melee combat. Now we get to attach the beam rifle. Personally, I'm starting to like the look of its design. It complements the whole figure. And one thing I like about Robot Spirits is this hidden shoulder extender to give the arms more reachability. I don't normally see this feature in Gunplas and Master Grade. So just like the Rising Freedom, you need to attach the adapters to the shield. And one other good thing about this figure, its shield does not block the shoulders and can be adjusted accordingly, especially when activating its beam saber for melee combat. And for better handling of the shield, the wrist can hold onto the shield's handle. Unfortunately, it cannot hold the shield upwards to the side since the shoulder's articulation isn't tight enough, but towards other directions, it can be held upwards. And finally, let's attach the beam saber blades that are mounted on the legs, used for deadly kicking and deflecting incoming beam blade weapons, just like what you see in this pose. I really enjoy posing these Metal Robot Spirits. It gives a different premium experience, especially this anime accurate proportions and design, which makes me remember the actual movie. The Immortal Justice really expresses a good amount of melee combat feel. It looks agile and very powerful. It could have shown much more potential in the movie, but of course the enemy can read minds, which helped defeat the Rising Freedom and the Immortal Justice. In this pose, we get to see the full deployment of its beam sabers, especially the long-range melee tactics of the shield through its flight mode, and then the Rising Freedom's high mat full burst mode. And also, I forgot about this hidden gimmick which slightly extends this beam saber. Aside from the Rising Freedom's transformation, you also need to see how the Immortal Justice is transformed. Overall, very similar in terms of the adapters used, but there's a slight difference within the adapter on the stomach area, where the shield's two connectors will latch itself to. You shall notice it through this transformation walkthrough. And so both be considered to have simple transformations based on the anime design, but they require several adapters in real life, including the stand connectors, such as these ones. It might be intimidating for the beginners, but the manual instructions are there to guide us step by step, especially when attaching it to the stand for a regular Gundam pose. Transforming both the Immortal Justice and Rising Freedom complete. And for a regular mobile suit pose, you'll need this adapter. So overall, in terms of the Gundam design, I noticed that they are not as powerful as their nuclear-powered predecessors, just like the Strike Freedom and the Infinite Justice. I tried to see if the Immortal Justice is equally powerful to the Rising Freedom, but I personally think that the Rising Freedom has more firepower and equipment since it has 2 more beam sabers on the shield and 2 more extra beam shields on the forearms. I asked myself why. The only reason I can think of is that the beam sabers of the Justice consume so much energy that it wasn't given any other equipments and weapons to maintain the multiple activated beam sabers. I also cannot ignore the fact that the Immortal Justice did not have much weapons on its wings, like cannons that can be used or pointed during mobile suit mode. I can remember the Strike Nor has similar wings, but this one has 2 railguns and 2 hidden guns at the handles of the 2 beam blades attached to the wings. Makes me wonder how cool it would have been if the Immortal Justice had more useful weapons on its wings, even just a little. Just like the Infinite Justice Type 2, it has a lot of weapons on its wings. And then lastly, I enjoyed this unboxing experience, as well as handling and posting these 2 premium figures of the metal robot spirits of the Tamashii Nations. We cannot ignore its luxurious feel. It still needs more improvement, even though most of the joints and articulations are tight. Some of it fall off quickly, just like the front and side skirts. The arms can do more tightening, but overall worth buying. Its design proportions and visible features are what stands out, especially the die-cast metal joints and the metallic paint coatings distributed around the figure, making these highly exceptional detailed figures. And another bonus information that you should know is that Metal Robot Spirits are the premium versions of Robot Spirits figures. But they share similar structure. Their weapons and other parts can be interchanged since most of the joints have similar sizes, just like how I borrowed the cannons of the Destiny Impulse as well as the anti-ship laser sword. So I have shown you the whole walkthrough and review of the Metal Robot Spirits Rising Freedom and Immortal Justice Gundam, as well as the highlighted poses that I personally wanted to show you. I hope I made this video fun and educational for you. Please let me know what you think in the comment section, like and subscribe to support my channel for more Gundam action and figure reviews. Thank you for watching.